Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to explore the first lecture entitled Antiquity Revisited, Ancient Greek Education System. So let us get started. In the history of pedagogical thought, ancient Greek education holds an important place, as it was not limited to teaching knowledge but aimed at forming the whole person intellectually, morally, physically, and civically. By the end of this video, students will achieve several objectives. First, they will identify the main ideals of ancient Greek education. Next, they will compare the educational models of Athens and Sparta. After that, they will explain the concept of Paideia and analyze the role of the liberal arts in shaping free and responsible citizens. Finally, they will evaluate the pedagogical contributions of the Sophists, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and relate Greek educational thought to modern teaching practices, such as dialogue, critical thinking, and holistic development. So let us dive deep into the Greek educational system and its philosophy. Ancient Greek education was not only a system of learning, it was deeply connected to philosophy. For the Greeks, education was not simply about preparing people for work or giving them practical skills. Its deeper aim was to guide individuals toward truth, wisdom, virtue, and excellence. This is why Greek philosophers were more interested in the purpose of education than in teaching techniques alone. They asked important questions such as, what does it mean to be educated? What kind of person should education form? And how can education help individuals become better citizens? A central concept here is arete. So what do we mean by arete? Arete refers to excellence. It includes intellectual brilliance, moral virtue, and practical competence. In other words, Greek education aimed to form a complete human being, not merely a skilled individual. Ancient Greek education was not the same everywhere. It differed from one city-state to another. The two most famous models were Sparta and Athens. So let us discover the difference between the two. In Sparta, education was mainly military. Its purpose was to produce strong, disciplined, loyal, and brave soldiers. The curriculum focused on physical training, endurance, obedience, and military skills. Spartan education was strict, authoritarian, and collective. In contrast, Athenian education was more balanced. Athens focused on developing well-rounded citizens who could participate in public and civic life. Its curriculum included reading, writing, music, gymnastics, and later rhetoric and philosophy. So while Sparta educated for strength and loyalty, Athens educated for wisdom, eloquence, and civic participation. This contrast is very important because it shows that education always reflects the values of society. Sparta valued military discipline, while Athens valued intellectual and civic development. One of the most important ideas in Greek education is Paideia. So what do we mean by Paideia? Paideia refers to the holistic formation of the individual. It means shaping the whole person, as I said earlier, intellectually, morally, physically, and civically. According to this vision, an educated person is not someone who only possesses knowledge. An educated person should also have wisdom, virtue, physical discipline, civic responsibility, and moral character. This means that education was seen as a lifelong process of human formation. The Greeks believed that intellectual development and moral development were inseparable. To know what is right was not enough, and one also had to practice what is right. Therefore, Paideia reminds us that education should not be reduced to exams, memorization, or technical skills. It should cultivate judgment, character, responsibility, and the ability to live meaningfully within society. Now, let's move to the Greek educational curriculum. The Greek educational curriculum also contributed to what later became known as the liberal arts. So, the liberal arts were considered the arts appropriate for a free person. And they were divided into two main groups, the trivium and the quadrivium. Let's start with the first group. The trivium included grammar, rhetoric, and logic. These subjects trained learners to use language correctly, argue persuasively, and reason clearly. The second group, quadrivium, included arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. These subjects developed mathematical, scientific, and aesthetic understanding. Together, the liberal arts formed a balanced curriculum. The Greeks were also pioneers in pedagogical methods. They valued dialogue, questioning, debate, critical thinking, and refutation. Learning was not only limited to memorizing and repeating information. Instead, learners were encouraged to question ideas, examine arguments, and search for truth. This approach is very close to what we call today student-centered learning. The Greeks recognized that learners are not passive containers waiting to be filled with information. They are active participants in the construction of knowledge. Greek education also valued experience. In subjects such as music, mathematics, rhetoric, and physical training, learners had to practice, perform, and apply what they learned. So Greek pedagogy combined theory with practice, reflection with action, and questioning with experience. Now let's talk about the most famous figures in the Greek educational system. Among the founding figures of Greek pedagogy were the Sophists. The Sophists were among the first professional teachers in Western history. They taught young men how to succeed in public and political life. Their main subject was rhetoric, or the art of persuasive speech. For the Sophists, success depended greatly on the ability to speak well, argue effectively, and persuade an audience. However, their educational philosophy was controversial. Critics argued that the Sophists cared more about persuasion than truth. Some believed that their teaching encouraged manipulation and relativism. This criticism prepared the way for another educational model, the philosophy of Socrates. So who was Socrates? Socrates was one of the most influential educational thinkers in history. His method, known as the Socratic method, was based on asking questions. Through questioning, Socrates encouraged learners to think critically, analyze arguments, identify assumptions, and examine evidence. Instead of giving students ready-made answers, Socrates guided them to discover deeper understanding by themselves. This method transformed the role of the teacher. The teacher was no longer simply a transmitter of knowledge. The teacher became a guide, a facilitator, and stimulator of thought. Plato, the student of Socrates, believed that education should guide the soul from illusion to truth. For him, true education doesn't simply fill the mind with information, it enlightens the learners and helps them move from opinion to real knowledge. Plato saw education as a journey toward truth, reason, and higher understanding. Aristotle, Plato's students, developed a more balanced educational philosophy. He emphasized both theory and practice, both intellectual virtue and moral virtue. For Aristotle, the aim of education was eudaimonia, meaning human flourishing or well-being. He believed that virtue is developed through habit. A person becomes courageous by repeatedly acting courageously and becomes just by repeatedly doing just actions. To conclude, ancient Greek education laid the foundation of many modern pedagogical ideas. From Sparta, we learn the importance of discipline and collective responsibility. From Athens, we learn the value of intellectual, artistic, and civic education. Through Paideia, we discover the ideal of educating the whole person. Through Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, we see education as a path toward truth, virtue, and human flourishing. Therefore, Greek education remains relevant because it reminds us that the ultimate goal of education is not only to produce knowledgeable people, but to form thoughtful, ethical, and responsible human beings. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you in other videos.